Hello, hello everyone, it's Lennon, and today we are going to do a first look at my Oracle Wild Nature Wild You. Now this is a 63 card deck that I've made completely out of images, like photographs of nature, because getting back in touch with my wild self, I would like that to be mirrored. I would like my wild self to be a mirror of that. So this is basically going to be a walkthrough. I may say a few things about the cards, but I just want to show all of the cards because I don't want any surprises. I tend to be one of those that likes the surprise aspect of decks. So if you are one of those that doesn't want to look at every card, then I'll probably be sharing some images, maybe on Instagram, pretty soon, and you could go check that out. The link is in the description below to my Instagram handle name. So this, look, I just wanted to kind of show aesthetically that this deck is pretty chunky. I love it. It's made with smooth cardstock, and it doesn't actually leave fingerprints, which I love. And it's an Oracle size, probably, I don't know, 3.5 by 4 maybe. And it's pretty bendy, and it shuffles like a dream. I'm going to show some cards, and I may touch on some things, but ultimately this is just a little first look-see. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope that if you are interested in this deck, that I hope that it becomes a tool for you to get back in touch with the wildness that is you. Such a beautiful card, this bejeweled web. The spider, you can't see the spider in this particular card, which I kind of like because it's more so the work, the aspect of the weaver, you know. Pathwalker. Now I do want to say that I do use words like walker in terms of key, instead of just keywords. I wanted to use key phrases as another type of a tap in to the wild self. So these could be words and phrases that you use in terms of naming the wild you. And path walking, hedge riding, things like that can be part of that journey of getting back in touch with the wild you. So a lot of the keywords are key phrases for that reason. Secret Keeper. I love this because it looks like, you know, this is where I would go to sit and tell the forest my secrets, because that'd be the only thing in nature that I could trust was the forest, the enclosed secret nature of the forest. Wisdom, of course, represented by the owl here. This beautiful owl in the autumn. I love the colors behind him. Just looks like he's way up in the tree somewhere. Sensuous. I think that for a long time I believed my wild self to be my sensual self, and you know, to kind of going into sensuality and sexuality, but the wildness is so much more than that. There's a flirtatiousness that you have with your wild self that doesn't actually have anything to do with your sexuality or your sensuality. It's just sensuous to the point of flirting, but nothing's actually happening yet. And it's about getting back in touch with simple sensuous things like touch and like laughing, things like that. Just being ultimately gentle on the self. Rustic. I love that these keywords, they automatically make me tap into aspects of the wild self. Like this rustic aspect of nature where, you know, nothing is, the hedges aren't cut just perfect, and the lawns aren't mowed, you know. Howl. I wanted this to represent the howl as an act. Sacred chantings, things like that. The noises that we make in our wildness. Fierce. I think that storms come on And they can come on so fast and so fierce, and they can be so destructive, that there are aspects of our wild self that are like that and that we have to take into account. Rebirth. Of course I had to have a snake in my deck. I only have a few animals, but they were animals that I believe could actually help me tap into the wildness of me and the many, many, many aspects that they're in. And of course, snake would be rebirth. I love that it's like wet. He's sitting in like a swampy area. I love that. Overgrown. Much like rustic, this is an actual overgrowth. So this isn't unkempt. This isn't unkempt or rustic. This is, there's death involved in this as well. Riotous. Now I was going to use the term righteousness, but that's not a word that I associate with my wild self. Riotous, the physical act of wanting to riot about something, to be passionate about something to the point of actually fighting for what you believe in, is a part of my wild self. Protect and stand up for yourself. Stand up for what you believe in. That's riotous, and what better way to represent that than a volcano? Roar. Of course, the lion is, to me, the ultimate embodiment of the wild self, of the strength. If you're familiar with tarot, the strength in ferociousness. And sometimes you just have to let it out. I think that so many people use the term or the phrase let it go, but they forget that before they let it go, they have to let it out. And this is about that physical scream into your pillow moment, that your wild self, it's actually your wild self that cultivates that bond. I love this mama and baby whale here, and how the whales, the baby whales, the calves, ride the backs of the mamas like a piggyback ride. I just love that. It's like ultimate bond card. I'm gonna put them down here a little to the bottom of the frame because I don't want there to be any glare. Create. I love this image of Yellowstone's mineral display here because there's a play on heat and the cold that's here, and the mineral mixing. It's like, this is the ultimate alchemy card for me. This is nature's paint, other than clouds, right? Release. Autumn, of course, whatever that entails for you, the release of the leaves because of there being the water going dormant in the trees. So, offering, this beautiful baby pomegranate here. The offerings that nature gives us in terms of food, in terms of plants, edible plants that we often take for granted. I had an apple tree growing up, and every time the autumn would come and would grow, it would feel like the ultimate gift from the tree. Like, I don't know, just very important to the wild self. Now this is nettle, stinging nettle. And if you've never felt stinging nettle, it's like a miniature cactus almost. They're very tough on you, but there's an abrasiveness to this herb that is necessary. And I love that I chose this for this card. Wind Dancer. Of course I have to have a wind card because I'm a wind witch. But the dancer aspect is the twirl and the ever-flowing nature of wind, and how it's ultimately just swirling, and a part of your wild self is always twirling and swirling and dancing. Hysteria. Love that this is a fog card, because so many cards that we'll see in the deck are about mystery and about not knowing what the road ahead is. And this is what this card represents, not knowing. It's like visibility. This is a visibility card. Your wild self is stuck in the fog, is stuck in the mist. Now, I had to have a card that was wild, that used the term wild, because this is the wild nature, wild you. And for me, that is the wildflower card. It's just this concept of throwing all the flower seeds out into some fertile soil and watching the magic happen in the spring and the summer. Stillness. I love this because this is a riverbank. And you don't know how deep the river is. Obviously, it's deeper than flowing because still waters run deep. This is a depth card for me because you can't even really tell. You can barely tell that this is even water on the surface on top of these rocks. And you can't tell how deep it is. And it's just about the depths that we can see and the depths that we don't see. In this place of stillness. Solitude. I love this card. Several cards in the deck are these embodiments of like remote islands, remote things off by themselves, getting mirrored. I love that type of imagery. And for it to be a tree in this particular card is important to me. That there's this, it being all alone, but it has been there forever. It came from a seed, and like it's like a loneliness card, I guess, to an extent. Clever. This clever little fox, of course. A lot of people associate cleverness with foxes, but there's a deviousness, but a funny and a mischievousness nature to foxes that we forget to tap into. We forget to be a little playful, and when we forget to be witty, and we forget as adults and as humans, we forget that there's a playfulness and a cleverness in the way we can solve problems and the way we can overcome certain challenges in life. There's a little bit of playfulness and mischievousness that we can tap into. Free. Birds flying high. I love birds in flight. I think that represents to me the ultimate, it's the embodiment of freedom, is an uncaged bird. My grandmother had a ton of birds that lived in her house in cages. She had a bedroom specific to them, and they were like cockatoos and parakeets, and they were beautiful and they could talk to you and things, but I don't know, a part of me always felt bad that they were in cages, that they weren't just out in nature. So I needed something, I guess, to represent that feeling. Now, this is not a mountain. This is a precipice. This is a cliff. And this represents invisible boundaries, you know, the boundaries that are there that we don't see. And there has to be a way that we tap in to be able to see those boundaries. Like complete instincts. Get back in touch with our primal instincts, because it's an instinct that's ultimately going to stop us from just walking right off this cliff. Confidence. Love this. I love how the sunflower faces the sun. It has a huge face, but this is the, I don't know, hold your chin up high card. Daring. There aren't a lot of man-made structures in the deck for a reason, because I needed this to be about wildness, but for some reason it was the audacity that I felt with this image that spoke to me of juggling multiple things, and it taking so much effort to balance these stones in a way that would make them balanced, that I guess I needed to see in the deck. Dream. Of course I needed a dream card. And I love that people have gotten so good with photography, with seeing galaxies while still on Earth. I think that is a great representation here of what our dreams could represent. Pause. This is winter stillness, winter pause, hibernation. this is quietness to me. This is the ultimate quiet card. No speaking. And maybe not even listening. This is blank. This is a pause. Nothing's happening in nature, and nothing should be happening in the mind. So that sometimes with our wild selves, there's going to be such a frenzy going on, and we'll see that card coming up, frenzy. There can be such a frenzy that this chaos that the wild self gets enthralled with, that we need the pause. We have to have something to represent the other side of the coin. Guide. This is my secret garden card. Who didn't want a robin guiding them around the castle grounds or the manor grounds, telling them where the secret garden is? It's just like, the robin is my guide, the ultimate hierophant. Now, if any animal on earth represented angelic grace, to me, it would be the swan. And there's a triplicity with the swan being sky, water, and land that I love, that aspect. But it's also this gracefulness, this, when they're going after their prey, they're still graceful. They're not like diving chaotically into the water. They just swoop down, barely make a sound. And there's just this ultimate grace with the swan that I love. It's just very angelic. I love the Aurora Borealis. I do. But there's so much happening between sun and our magnetic fields, that we have no idea that that's going on. We're just seeing pretty colors. But there's so much violence that's going on to make this happen. And it's an exploration card. It's a what makes you full of wonder, and go explore it. Go find out some interesting things about those things. Protect. Now, I needed a couple of boundary cards because, of course, when we're protecting ourselves, we have to know how to do that. And the wall, in this case, represents the hard work you put up to place permanent boundaries. Boundaries that will be there for centuries, like this wall. It will be there for time and time and time, for you and a few generations of descendants. The wall will be there. The work you put in now is forming those permanent boundaries. Hedge Rider. I love this card because you can't really tell except for these cattails here, but this line is water, and it's perfectly mirroring the hedge up top. And that is indicative to me of the two realms, the other world and our realm, and how we can ride the fence on that. So hedge riding is definitely something that I do to get back in touch with my wild self. Flow. Of course, water. A waterfall stopped in time through a photograph, but it's about the flow of nature, the natural flow of nature. The inevitability of the flow of nature is represented by this stopper in time. Pentacle. No, not pentacle. Pinnacle. Mountain card. The mountain image has been symbolizing obstacles for many, many years, but it's an obstacle card, but it's also like the inevitability of obstacles, but also the inevitability of the view that you will get when you get to the top. So it's a boon card to me. This is, if you overcome everything and do what you're supposed to do, the boon will be inevitable. Adventurous. I like how the person taking this photo is not on the physical path. They're a little off the path. So this is about decision. This is about making the decision to get on the path that will ultimately lead to adventure. I guess embody Bilbo in this card. For this card. Hope. Of course, the seedling is the symbol of hope, but it's the hope for tomorrow. It's a hope for the future. A hope that this seedling will grow into what it's supposed to be. Into a full-grown plant. So, ultimate hope card. Burrow. This is a hidey hole card. This is I like researching about hidey holes and how foxes tend to have hidey holes like this that aren't their actual den all over the forest as a way to quickly hide from predators. But it's not their home. It's just a little hidey hole. And it's about that's about safety, but finding those safe spaces within your home, but then also without your home. Like maybe that's a friend's house or your parents' house. You know, somebody's house, maybe it's a park that you really love, but it's like finding those safe spaces in and around your community that you can utilize in your wild, getting in touch with your wild self as well. Prophecy. I love that this is an North American raven. And here where I live, we have both North American ravens and what they call American crows. And they look very, very similar, like in flight. But when you get up close, the raven is the one that has like this little pearlescent eye. And they're the ones that have been said throughout history to give omens and to put forth prophecy. So I needed something to represent the divinatory aspect of our wild self. So it's about the mystery of life and the mystery of the future. Wanton. I could stare at fire all day, but this particular card makes me think of dancing naked around a fire. The ancient rituals of old that my ancestors did. And getting back in touch with that part of myself. That wanton, I don't care who sees me, I'm going to dance naked around this fire self that is in there somewhere. Frenzy. Here's that frenzy card that I had said earlier. This is the ultimate mushroom card. The mushroom grows on decay. So again, this is like the lotus in the mud, I guess, type of a card. But they grow in such high numbers. And they give off so many spores. But it's a chaotic frenzy that we must tap into with the mushroom card. Comfort. Now this is my pillow card, okay? The comforts of home. The comforts of what makes your home a home. What things do you have to have? It's not just for survival, but things that you have to have in terms of comfort, that when you very, very first get home from work, say, what's the first thing that you look for? Is it a specific drink? Is it a specific blanket? House shoes? Just one little thing that you have that gives you comfort, seek that out, because I think that that's important to have those things. Not a lot in terms of consumerism, but it could just be one thing that your go-to thing for comfort. Distant. I like this card because again, it's about gaining some distance. This is about gaining some distance from the things that aren't mattering, because you're kind of locked into a cycle right now of playing tug of war with something that really shouldn't even be on the other side of that rope. And it's about gaining some distance. Just let go to the island in your brain, in your mind, I'll say. Go to the island in your mind and gain a little bit of distance to gain some perspective. That's what this is. Unkempt. I needed something to represent the flow of hair. If you follow me at all, you know that my hair is very long and very wild, and I needed something to represent the unkempt nature of my hair, the unbrushed, wild nature of my hair. And I knew I wanted that represented in grass. So I love that it's unkempt, but it doesn't look tangled like hair, but still. I guess my hair would probably be brambles more than this grass, but the grass is doing what it's supposed to do in terms of symbolism here. Prowl. Again, not a lot of animals in this deck, but I knew I needed the jaguar as a form of survival. This is a survival card. This is fight for what you need the most. If you have to drink more water, drink more water. If you need protein, go get protein. Fruits and vegetables, food pyramid, hygiene, whatever it is that you have to survive, go and hunt it down if necessary. Keep yourself in check is this card. And the Jaguar has absolutely no problem doing that. Abyss. I think this is one of my favorite cards in the deck. Abyss. It's the blackness of the ocean. This represents all that we do not know about the ocean as a mirror to all that we do not know in our shadow selves. And I believe that on our journeys of integrating the shadow, which is a lifelong journey in my opinion, there will always be things that are in the black that we're not going to know. We're not going to know about ourselves. And you have to allow that largely. I don't want to say you have to allow it, but it's more so that we have to accept it, I think. We have to accept that there will always be a shadow. And mirrored in the fact that there's so much of the ocean that we don't know about. Beauty. I love Luna moths, but I'm going to put some bad news on this beauty card. The beauty for me isn't in Fibonacci sequence beauty. This is the fleeting aspect of beauty. I guess this is the aging card for me. This is being okay with getting old and losing what you consider beauty to be. Because a lot of people associate Fibonacci sequence beauty with getting older and staying youthful, vitality, things like that. I mean, look how beautiful the Luna moth is, but then you know that they only are alive on Earth for 10 days. That's it. And it's just about, they're just doing what they can do. They're not obsessing about the fact that they only have 10 days to live. They're just doing what they can do, and they're going to be beautiful in the process. It's about finding that radiance within, because you as a human, you're just a fleeting presence that will eventually snuff out. So I needed something to represent that for me. Undulate. I love this card. This card is a feeling. The ebb and flow here is a feeling of standing here, right in water's edge, and feeling the pull of the ocean on your feet. How the sand drags, especially in high tide or higher tides. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful experience that I've had several times in my life, being at the ocean and feeling that ebb and flow. And how it mirrors the water, what the water is doing inside of our own bodies, which I think is important to know. Enchant. This is my lightning bug card. This is find things that enchant you now. Just like fireflies and lightning bugs may have done in your childhood, I still find myself going outside in the summer at dusk just to watch them. I don't have to necessarily go out in the yard and try to catch them, but I just watch them and sit at dusk for the fleeting time that it is dusk. And it's that magic of twilight, the magic of that time between day and night that you're still awake, but the day is over, day is done, and it's always been such a magical time for me. So this is twilight, but find the enchantment. Somehow find some enchantment. Nurture. And this is a take care of yourself card as well, along with several others. I like this image, but the reality of this image is that this nest is really perfect. Like, all the nests that I have seen in my life have not ever been this perfect, but they may be. But this is the nurturement card. This is using things to your advantage that that aids you. Like this robin uses straw to make the nest. So it's like making your nest. This even could be monetary, making a nest egg, you know, getting your finances in order, things like that. It's just like taking care of yourself as a human in a mundane way. I think, you know, like the everyday things that you have to do to keep up, and that's what this card represents. Balance. I like that I needed something to represent a bridge space, a space between man or humanity versus nature, and how there's a liminal space because we are nature, but then technically we aren't. So that's what this represents, is that liminal space and finding the balance between humanity and nature. Anyway, capable. I love that this picture is like zoomed in 1,000% onto the ant. The ant is capable of so much, of carrying 50 times their body weight, making those ant hills, colonies. There's so much that the ant does that makes them capable, but the ultimate thing that they do for me is they've lasted forever. They have graced the graves of dinosaurs for a millennia. So they have been here long before us, and they will be here long after. They will be taking tiny, tiny parts of our molecular selves to eat go back to their anthill with it. So there's a capability to the ant, right? Burden. I love this. There's so much about the donkey that gets mistreated because they can carry immensely heavy loads. But it's again about juggling. This is about what is on our backs. What are we carrying around that we don't need? Take that off. Don't climb the mountain with things that you don't need in your pack. I love this hazy moon picture. I actually took this. I was looking at the full moon through my telescope, and I was able to snap this with my phone, attach my phone to this telescope and take a picture really fast. And it turned out hazy, but I loved that it wasn't stark. It was kind of like a film was over it. It was cloudy that night, so that could be another thing. But it was like the color and the haze almost looked like a pearl, you know? Like the moon was chucked right from an oyster, you know? So I love that. I think that the haziness here goes on to the mystery. Find the mystery, and how largely, in my opinion, mystery is a part of humanity that we have to have. The ultimate unknown, I guess you could say. Barbaric. The cactus. I love cactus. I just think that there's such a ugliness and a raw barbaric nature to the cactus that we believe is barbaric, but it's not. It's protection, and it's beautiful resourcefulness is what cactus is. Illusion. This is a Mirage card. I like these two side by side. Look at that. It's like Arizona in 2 cards, in my opinion. But the Mirage is illusion, just what it says. It's seeing things that aren't really there. Seeing things that we're focusing on something that makes no difference. We're focusing on something that ultimately, when we get closer and closer to it and we put a lot of effort into, you know, getting to that, we figure out it didn't exist or it didn't matter. And it's a letdown, and a lot of paths will lead through the mirage, okay? There you'll see a lot of places on your path that are full of mirages, but you have to know the difference between a mirage and reality. Roots. Now, I thought at first that this was my ancestor card, and it can be because I do associate roots with ancestry, but this is also grounding, severe grounding. I want to say severe grounding. Grounding in a way that roots that have gone very, very, very deep. Roots that have pulled the water from the well that is under all those layers of dirt to grow big and strong and gnarly and to be ancient. And the resilience of the root system. And that's beautifully rendered here in this beautiful card, in this beautiful image. The diligence of the bee. This worker bee is getting some pollen from a dandelion, of course. The bees work so hard, they travel hundreds of miles a day to collect pollen to ultimately go back to the hive and make honey, right? And there's a lot of liters of honey that one hive can produce. And there's so much work that goes into that. This is a work ethic card. Your work ethic. If you set your mind to something and you are diligent, you can work as hard as the bees and you don't hear them complaining. Secure. The fish is hiding. Much like the burrow card, this is almost like a hidey hole card, but this is a camouflage card specifically. This is find ways in which you can, I don't want to use the phrase blend in, because that means that people could misconstrue that to mean don't be your true self, right? But there are things that humans do automatically that hide and protect ourselves from getting shunned, from getting alienated from society. And so I think that largely we do this anyway. We find ways to hide ourselves. And it doesn't necessarily mean hide away from everything, but this is probably shining light on times when we need to shield ourselves for our best interest. That's it. Metamorphosis. I love the chrysalis, but I wanted something to represent everything that's actually happening inside the chrysalis. Death has occurred inside the chrysalis. Decay, actual decay, is happening inside the chrysalis, and then rebirth is happening inside the chrysalis. And it's the death and the decay that are actually feeding the rebirth. This is the ultimate Phoenix card. How are we dying? How is a part of us, maybe an aspect of ourselves dying that is feeding other new parts of ourselves? I think that this is a way to tap into those aspects that have died or that need to die, and how may those feed a new part of yourself that you will birth. It's all metamorphosis. Shun. This is a great card. This is barbed wire. So this is another boundary card, but for me, barbed wire is a type of fence that can actually harm you if you choose to engage in it. So this is a boundary that you either put up or have come across that you can get physical harm from. So this is a protection that's shielding you from getting hurt. I think it speaks of time in which we must shun things from our life, and those things that we're shunning may not be pleasant to shun. So it's thinking about all those. And then the last card is a card that I showed in a previous video where I kind of gave you a sneak peek. I think I showed this one card as the nectar card, the honeysuckle card. A lot of people have speculated as to what the nectar of the gods is. And I always thought it was honey, but I didn't have anything growing up, and even in my life now, that I could like go and physically eat honey from a honeycomb, like in real life. But honeysuckle I did all the time, and that to me was my nectar, a sweet flower that was so heady that it almost mesmerized me. and put me in almost like a, I don't know, I don't want to say drunken mindset, but almost in like a warped, my mind became warped with the scent and the taste, that I would just like lay there and veg out. So it's like, find the nectar of the gods that is you. And I hope that you enjoy this deck. If you choose to purchase it, I think I'm gonna put it on Make Playing Cards. I'll leave the link below, and you can just purchase it right from Make Playing Cards, and it'll ship it right to your house. I think I'm not gonna put it in anything. I'm not gonna put it in a box. It'll just come shrink wrapped. But I mean, it's just so. I mean, hopefully you can put it in a bag or just leave it on your altar. I think that would be a beautiful practice. I think I'm gonna leave mine on my witchy table. Hope you enjoy, and let me know your thoughts. You can let me know in an email or below. Hope to see everyone again. Much love.